We teach what we had to learn. And Grace Teoh is an inspiring example of that. Grace was a data analyst in the 9 to 5 corporate world, but she left that behind and now runs a successful Power BI training and career coaching business. Grace is a former member of our Power BI consultant program, so I really enjoyed catching up with her and talking about how she enables her students to think for themselves by blending training and coaching principles, and what she values in her new life of freedom. This is part 2 of her series, Journey of a Power BI Pro. To learn more about creating your own path to freedom, please visit learnpowerbi.com/pro. Link is also in the show notes, and you will also find the link to connect with Grace Steele. Enjoy and power on. Welcome to the Power On Show, where we talk Power BI and beyond, sometimes way beyond. But our goal is always to help you create a successful Power BI career and a life of freedom. I'm your host, Avi Singh. I can't think of a better person to start this adventure. So, well, folks, welcome to this. And I'm super excited to be talking to Grace. And we're going to cover it roughly in 3 parts. You've probably heard me talk about this. Our kind of philosophy around the way we approach life really is do what you love, make an impact, and create a life of freedom. So, Grace, let's kind of dive in there. Tell me, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, I now train people to get insights fast, reliably, and flexibly from their dashboards, right? So the
Mhm.
people I work with generally are analysts or managers who have to do reporting all the time and they're just like floundering in that whole Excel mess that's been going on. So really, how do you get someone to just focus more on analyzing the data on the insights part rather than just struggling to work with it all the time? So that's really the key
Mhm.
group of people I focus on, the people who are just in Excel every day with tons of VLOOKUPs over 37 columns and like pivot tables all over the place, right? So how do you get them away from all that, just a lot of data cleaning and just all that tedious, complex kind of work, but focus them on the higher value things that really matter in terms of
Mhm.
the insights coming from their data. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask you something. I- Was that you? I mean, are you describing yourself? Was that you at some point?
Yeah, I mean, that was life back then, like about, I don't know, about ten years back. So I was
Mm.
a business analyst as well, right? And back then we were managing like about 2 billion worth of like revenues in Singapore
Wow.
dollars, right? And we were just like a team of like 5 people, and everyone was just looking to us for like numbers and like all of that. Anything to do with like pricing, to do with revenues
Yeah.
from all the various streams, and just like Excel day in and day out. And it's kind of painful, right? Because what happens is then somebody does something, we are using the same set of data, but
Mhm.
we are all generating different cuts of it, right? And we're doing so much duplicate work. And what happens
Yeah.
is when you go all the way up, someone's like, hey, you told me that revenue was like, I don't know, $15 something something, and then you tell me it's like $15.70. Like, why is there like a 10-cent difference, right? You're like, oh my god, right? So all those
Oh
kind of
God,
stuff, it
yeah.
just, yeah, it's
You
just
know what?
really.
That's very precise. I would have kind of welcomed that kind of feedback. The kind that I was getting used to is that, oh, that doesn't look right. I'm like, what? Right? Oh man, and yeah. All right, all right. So that's great. I love that, and I of course I do that in a way myself. Like we're trying to, kind of teach what we had to learn, right? But so I know you do in-person training, and I think that's where you started. But I have heard a lot about you from your online training, and the bits and pieces that I've heard really blow me away. As as I as I have seen, it is unlike any other online training. So for one, this is live training, and it's
Yeah.
not recorded. Tell me a bit about your online class and tell yeah why what makes it unique. It's very different. Tell me a bit more about how you run the online class. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Right. So I think online training, or to have live online training for like full 2 days, like pre-pandemic, that's like crazy. Like nobody would do that. Why would I sit in front of a computer for like full 2 days, right? So of course the pandemic had a big part to play in it because we couldn't have offline face-to-face trainings for a long time. So then, it definitely was the kick the pivot to then do and offer online trainings. But I think the challenge that a lot of us who have experienced, right, is like even just like a 1 hour meeting on Zoom, that's like so energy sapping and people are distracted and they're moving all over the place. And if you've had any online learning, live learning done before, you might be joining, I don't know, a group of 20 or 100 people, and you're just
Wow.
left kind of, figuring out where you're supposed to click, what's going on. And once you're lost, you're pretty much
Exactly.
lost.
That's what I was
It's game
thinking.
over.
That's
Yeah.
hard enough in a live in-person class, and online if you're lost, might as well quit.
It's pretty much game over, right? Because there are the kind of non-technical trainings, so
Yeah.
kind of you could still latch back if there's something you could like catch back in. There's a topic you moved on, you could follow, right?
Mm,
But for the technical pieces, in Power BI, it's layered, right? It just builds and builds and builds. So I think that was one of the key considerations when we redesign our trainings for live virtual trainings, was how can we
yeah.
create this environment where everyone feels that they can and have that confidence to be engaged, to understand, and also to follow on every single piece of the way, right? So we're like, okay, if we have that, what's really missing? And what
Yeah.
we realize is that there's not enough feedback. So feedback is coming to
I
me as a
actually
trainer.
can I just interject for a second? I mean, if I would have heard this some time ago before I'd met you, I would have said that's crazy. That's a pipe dream. It's never gonna happen. But now I know it's possible. So yeah, tell us. So feedback is a key piece. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so feedback is a key piece, right? When like as you are learning and you make mistakes, you need to know
Mm.
that where you've gone wrong or where you're lost at, right? So what happens is then in a lot of online trainings, if you're using Zoom or the like large platforms, you can't give that feedback to the trainer. The trainer only can download in one direction.
Yeah.
You could type in a chat box, or you could, I'm sorry, we have a problem. Can I share my screen
Yeah.
with you? And then the
But
whole
but
group
as
of like 50 people
yeah,
wait
but
for you.
as a trainer, I mean that's almost impossible for me to handle in a live class, right? I mean somebody raises a hand, God, I
Mm,
mean to help them, I have to disrupt the whole session.
yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging. So
Mm.
feedback. Tell me more about that. Like, have you changed the way you're getting feedback, or have you changed the way you're responding to it?
Now, I think that there's two things. One is a technology enabled solution, the other one would be how you use the challenge or the problem that the person faces in so that to further the learning of the group, right? So I'll handle in the two parts, right? First is a
Mm.
technology piece, and that's when I had discussion with my brother about all these headaches of trying to do online classes, and he was like, "Have you considered virtual machines?" Right? So for now, all my classes, be it face to face or virtual ones, everyone logs into a virtual machines for all their hands-on exercises, right?
And
Because
you set them up, right? You set
yeah,
them up. They're ready to go. They're pre-configured,
exactly.
and,
They just
and
log in. They
yeah,
just log in with the credentials that we give them, and then they will have the same exact. So you don't
yeah,
even have a difference in the versions of whichever Excel or Power BI people are using. So you have a little bit more control in that sense. But what happens is then I have a whole screen here, 8 screens at one go, and you can see everybody's where
wow,
they are. So at any point in time, you don't have to keep asking like, "Where are you guys? Are you done? Are you ready?"
yeah.
You just see, and where you can
So
see
so
people
wait,
making a
you
mistake.
said 8 screens. Is that what you cap it at? Is the class capped at eight
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
Yeah,
For online virtual trainings, we cap it at 8, right? Because
yeah,
then you want to have the ability to look at where everyone is, but also
yeah.
that size is a great size for people to interact, to contribute. So if you have a huge group, people will be, oh my god, like, am I going to hold the whole class back, right? But if you have a
Yeah,
small group enough, it's more like a chat. It's a two-way conversation that then
yeah,
encourages people to be curious or to contribute, to
yeah,
not be so like shy about things.
yeah.
Yeah. So then
So,
that
so
works both ways.
yeah, that's brilliant. But let me just say one thing. Um, Sometimes companies approach me and we're talking about classes, and I try to ask them like, what kind of class do you want? Like, what's the end result you want? Right?
Mm,
Sometimes they just want like an overview. It's like, yeah, we just want people to kind of get to know a little bit of Power BI and so on and so forth. Right? And that's great, right? But
mm,
what you're talking about is different. What you're talking about is you want to deliver a class where they walk away with those skills and with the confidence of to use those skills. Now that's a
yeah.
high bar, right? And that's why I guess the virtual machine, the environment, the small class size, that sounds amazing. Is there any other element which you feel differentiates or makes it special, or which you have had to add or introduce as you developed? Now, I'm sure this must have like took a few iterations, right, for a few trial and error, right? So
Mm.
tell me if there are other elements which you have introduced or added to the system.
Yeah. So one of the biggest would then be the second point in how then we create this live training environment, right? It's then on the delivery and the engagement aspect, right? So we talk about how someone makes a mistake, and usually in live classes we run up to them, we help them out, and then
Hmm.
we okay, let's move on with the whole group, right? So there's like a pause when it happens. So what happens is on for our trainings now live as well as the offline and the online ones, we actually invite that person. Would you be all right if we can share this with the
Oh
class?
wow,
Let the
love
class
that.
work together with you, right? So
Yeah.
then it happens so that there is a real
So
error
now
that needs
they
help,
can
right?
see that person's screen, and
Exactly.
now they're together rather than everybody else is waiting. Oh, that's
Exactly.
brilliant. That's
Yeah.
just
So you
brilliant.
so you invite everyone to troubleshoot
Yeah.
together. So everyone tries to contribute, right? And then that's where for the facilitator, it's then to kind of coach the group.
Oh,
So
that's
for them, it's the
beautiful.
first time they're looking at it, and you're like, guys, it's not about the formulas, it's about your thought process, right? So that brings me to the whole big point about the way we design our trainings, the way we deliver them. It's always about coaching people. It's not telling them you click here, you click that, you do this, you do that, you type
Wow.
that, and there you get it. No, we
What?
always start every example with like, okay, guys, this is the start point. Tell me where's the end point you want to go. Okay, once you're able to do that, can you conceptually break it down for me? Don't tell me the formulas, don't tell me the buttons. Just tell me if you could wave a one, how would you like it to look like each step of the way? Then and only then do we say, okay, you know what? I'm your Google right now. I'm going to tell you exactly how to execute your steps, but you came
Yeah.
out with it yourselves. Yeah.
But man, that's blowing my mind right now because I think a lot of us think of technical training as that how to steps, right? Oh yeah, to create a chart, I need to click here, do that, to do this, right? So we think of it as series of steps, but you use the word coaching, right? I would, yeah, yeah. So, um, wow, that's really unique. So, what I was thinking was that this setup that you have with virtual machine, and if somebody asks a question, instead of having to go to them, you invite them to the class. I mean, this exact same setup could work and could work really well even for in-person classes.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance
Exactly.
to use this setup in an in-person class?
Yeah, exactly, right. So in the past, when I started face to face, I didn't have virtual machines, and we did that. I
Mhm.
run to you, I help you out, and then we
Yeah,
move on with
yeah,
class, right? So now that it's kind of post pandemic, and we're having a blend of some of the face to face and the virtual classes, I've tried that out, and it's really
yeah.
great too
Oh,
because then it
really?
provides people more opportunities to learn to troubleshoot. It's so easy to follow a
Yeah.
class and click everything, right? But the moment
Wow,
you hit a wall, you're like, oh my god, where do I even begin? So then
man.
all those opportunities, present itself for then the class to have real like, okay, where are we now? Where are we stuck? What's going on? How do I trace that? So then
Yeah.
that becomes a very important part in their learning, which is the
Yeah.
troubleshooting aspect of it.
Oh, love that. So I think there are a few lessons here, and I'm just going to say it because I think I want to hold on to them. So one, you're talking about that. Yeah, I mean, don't focus on the steps. Don't get like dive into the formulas. Just trying to understand it conceptually, and you guide them there. And I think that applies to everybody, no matter whether you're learning from you or somebody else, right? So yes, and the other part, which I'm thinking is that this kind of involvement, right? Where, yeah, let's figure out and let's do it together. That's great. So let's switch gears a bit. Tell me about. So actually, I wanted to ask you about the coaching that you do.
Yeah.
Outside of this, I know you're still coaching people here in these classes. So the classes that you typically offer, they are Power BI, and I think you have a set of three classes, right? So the first class focuses on the Power Query,
Yeah.
and then DAX or modeling, and then visualization. Is that how it's structured?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
each one is typically a 2 days class.
Yes, that's right. 2 full days.
And but how do you run it, or how do you recommend people go through this class? Like they take the first class and then kind of sit with it for a while and then come back, or do it the next week and the next week? What would you recommend, or what do you typically see?
Well, I think it really depends. I would say that if you are hardcore like analyst and you just excel day in and day out, you should just do all three. And it doesn't matter which
Okay.
which way you do it.
Yeah.
People have a preference in a chronological way, right? Clean the
Yeah.
data,
Yeah.
Power Query, model everything, and then you layer in the visualizations.
Hmm.
that would be, I guess, a lot of people's ideal. But what
I
happens is
think so.
sometimes you can't quite catch the dates, so people could just do it out of order as well.
Oh,
So
that's
my
interesting.
recommendations, yeah, because the way
Yeah,
we design the trainings is such that you don't have to already have done the previous courses to be able to do the next one. We kind of like
that's brilliant.
modularize it. So it's
Yeah,
really clear, right? You could, let's say, I know it would be awesome if you could do Power Query before you did data modeling and DEX.
yeah,
But you could just come in for data modeling and DEX class, and that
yeah.
itself could already help you a lot in your analysis. The downside, of course, is then you have to manually still clean your data to get it in tabular form before you put it in. But you have already done that for like the last 5 or 7 years or something like
Yeah,
that. Right. So
yeah,
what's you could just hang on just a little bit more, maybe for like a month or two before you catch the next
yeah.
Power Query class. So I think in terms of the order with which you do it, it's all right. But
Mm-hmm.
some people do say, do I really need to do all three? And
Hmm.
interestingly enough, it was through working with my clients, with my customers, and with my students that I realized actually there is a different need for different groups of people. Right. So
All
the
right.
hardcore people, sure, you should just do everything. And if you don't have the
Mm.
budget or the time, do just the first two first. The query
Really?
as well as the data modeling, because those take so much, like 80 to 90% of the time, when it shouldn't be the case,
But
because the
but
the
wait.
story
Yeah.
is at the end, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what I would say is it would depend on the audience, right? Because sometimes when I taught my classes, sometimes I would
Yeah.
flip the format. I would
Yeah.
start with the visualization,
Yeah.
because that applied to the most number of people. So I would have that set
Hmm.
of class, and then I'll move to actually Power Query. So in my mind, visualization kind of applied to the whole bunch of people. A lot of people interested in creating reports, consuming reports, that sort of stuff, right? So I would start
Mm,
with that, then go with Power Query, which applies to a
mm,
smaller set. And I think it was always an even smaller set who wanted to mess with DAX and modeling, right? So my class would get smaller and smaller, and I loved it,
yeah.
right? I mean, it would get more intimate, and then we would just be having a party at that time, right? I mean, four DAX geeks, just hanging out. So yeah, so I would have expected
Mm.
you to say that. Is that because your audience is different? Tell me about that. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
surprised.
I think the audience is slightly different. So for the audience that you describe, or the way the interest and the group how it dwindles down, I think that can apply really nicely to the analyst type of people, right? But the
Mm,
interesting thing is then or at least in my side of the world, the people that I've been working with, right, I find the largest group of people and the course that has been the most popular is the very first one on Power Query. Like there are a
yeah,
lot more
it
people who
is.
have to
It is
consolidate
amazing.
and clean data
Yeah,
than to do reporting. So the
yeah,
people who
but
just did only Power Query and then that's it, and
well,
their
cool.
life
But
is like awesome.
but I would expect visualization to be number two. It has to be, right? Not the DAX and modeling. Just curious. Is it number two or no?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So I think the way we kind of look at it would be that, how do I put that? I think that the thinking that we have here is that if I'm serving a lot of analysts, right, what you want them to really problem solve is to just pull themselves out from all the resetting of the data, or to like shifting the model when the financial year changes, or to just
Yeah.
having to extend that formula range when it's applying that
Oh
same
my
formula
god.
over and over again, because it's spending so much time there, they are
Mm,
missing out the time that they need to actually craft the story, to play around the visuals each time they need to present a little bit differently. So what happens
that
is
makes
then
sense.
over here the thinking is, can we get those big blocks automated first? Can we clean those things up so that
Yeah.
whenever they are thrown a question, they are able to just slice and dice, or if they're able to just pull in the different like measures
Hmm.
and attributes to get that report, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of people then push for the first two. And then sometimes, maybe a year later, they come again for the visualization because they realize, hey, I kind of can use the graphs, but I'm not sure if I'm really presenting the story in the best way. So then when it lands with them, the course helps them kind of review and reflect on the way they've been trying to tell stories with their data, and then it gives them a different sort of language to understand what the charts are really for and what the interactive pieces can actually help them with. So it's kind of, you have a case study already, a use case,
Yeah.
and then you come for the class and you review what you've been doing, and then you kind of reiterate on that. Yeah, so kind of, I don't know, maybe it's the way we've maybe communicated with our
I think your
users. And
audience
yeah.
is slightly unique. I mean, it's more kind of data analysts and so forth, and I think that totally makes sense. I'm thinking, and of course, when I walk into organizations, they have this wide spectrum, right? They have the typical users like, oh, I'm just going to kind of use this report, maybe create a few reports, and then
Mm,
fewer people who are kind of going to be designing models and stuff. But but yeah, that makes sense from kind of a data analyst role. So one thing I'm curious about is that there's a line that I use when I'm working with my customers, is that when I'm training, I'm consulting. When I'm consulting, I'm training. And what I mean by that is, when I'm training, we often have students using their own data sets and we're working with kind of their examples, and that is kind of consulting. I sometimes solve uh, their business problems, or we build something that actually ends up being a usable report. Like a month later, I was, oh yeah, the report we built in the class, it's still working and everybody loves it, right? And of course, the flip side, when I'm consulting, I don't know, I feel it somehow comes, I can't help it at this point where um, again, I'm doing the knowledge transfer, right? I walk them through something that I did. So, and at some points I would have them kind of almost looking over my shoulder, or I
Mm.
would be looking over their shoulder sometimes. So I wonder, have you had that? I know sometimes, yeah. Does that blend a bit for you? So just training sometimes turn into consulting, or vice versa?
Mm, mm. I mean, in terms of, let's say, projects, right? That does happen. Like we start with training, and then people want, us to go in
Hmm.
for like consulting, and sometimes we do consulting, and people want to come in for training as well. But the interesting observation I have, it doesn't happen very often.
Really?
It's
All
really
right.
strange, yeah. So
Yeah.
that my at least my hypothesis, right? The people who do our trainings, so far I think we've only had one or two groups who then said, let's get you on for consulting, because then they want
Hmm.
to shorten the time to create the full thing. So that's one, right? But most people, no, they're really happy with what they have from the training, and they're able to implement
Yeah,
most of it back there, right? So
that's
for us,
great.
our trainings, we don't do customized trainings, because the idea here is that we want to focus you on the basic principles,
Yeah,
because you can't cover all possible scenarios in a training, right? So what we want to do is first principles. If you understand
exactly.
right, you're able to apply to many parts of it. But
Makes sense.
to kind of still help people bridge that gap, after our training sessions, there's always a complimentary 60-minute personalized coaching session one-on-one, right? So the idea
Wow.
is you learn what
That's
you
with
need, you
every
apply
student, a
with
one-on-one 60 minute.
every single one, every
Man.
single one. So long as you register for it, so long as you register for our
Yeah,
training, you have that complimentary. Make use of that, right? So you learn,
that's
you go back, you
incredible.
apply, you hit the walls, you ask people, you ask
Yeah,
Google, you ask ChatGPT or whoever, right?
yeah,
And then if you're still stuck, you bring those questions in, and again, we'll coach you through it, right? So again, it's not like a consulting where they bring it and we solve it for them, but we kind of
yeah,
work together, to coach them to kind of see where it is. So again, it's always a concept. A lot of times we realize people stuck thinking about the concepts. So once we kind of coach them through, a lot of people can move forward. But where they're still stuck, it might be a technical gap in that sense. Then sometimes, if I know the answer, we will share it. But if we don't know, then we will Google together and we'll figure out something
I
and
love that
work it
spirit.
out
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Oh
So
man, that,
that's how we blend.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love hearing that, and I think hearing that maybe early in my journey would have helped, because yeah, I mean, initially when I was starting this, I felt like you have to be an expert, you have to look an expert. There can't be any chink in your armor, and it doesn't have to be like that. You can grow with your clients, you can grow with your customers, you can learn with them, and I sometimes even think that that's more effective, because sometimes I'm kind of struggling through that, and sometimes I'm not even able to solve it in the call and say apologies. I'll have to look at it later and say, "Oh, Avi, I learned so much just by looking at you."
Yeah.
Kind of trying to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, there was a client I had a couple of months back, and exactly this thing happened, right? We only had an hour, we couldn't quite get to the solution. But by just having to work together and thinking through, it's really that thinking piece, that they really get that real time coaching on it, and they see me struggle, we struggle together, and then but it kind of, by the time we finished that 60 minutes, we still do get somewhere in terms of some clarity. And with
Mm,
that, over the weekend, she was able to solve it, and she excitedly like emailed me and said, "Hey, we've got that." Right?
yeah.
So it's kind of, how do you teach someone to fish rather than
Oh,
giving it to
love it.
them, right?
Oh man, I love it, love it, love it. So, that's a great segue to kind of the next part. So we talked about kind of what you do, and you touched on a little bit. We already heard a little bit about the impact you make, the people you work with. Now, I'm curious. What if you started with like one person? So sometimes I would teach a class, and usually I would say so typically this would be in person, room of 20 people. there would be at least one who was like the star student or my favorite student. I mean, they were engaged, they were asking questions, they were pulling me aside in breaks and that sort of stuff. And I really love the energy. And yeah, that certainly helped me as a trainer. If I would have that person in the group, I would do so much better. And if I didn't, then sometimes I would struggle. But does somebody come to mind? This one person, like, yeah, it was. I don't know. It was like really good for you to be teaching them.
Mm. There are. I mean, the people who are highly engaged and they ask questions and all, right?
Yeah, yeah. But there's somebody in particular that comes to mind for you.
Uh, uh,
Or yeah, I remember this one class where there was this. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, a story like that.
a couple. I mean, there every class we have set it up such that we encourage questions from everyone, and
Mm,
somehow most classes will always have that one, two, or three people
nice.
who jump to the forefront, right? But what
Yeah,
happens is that to make sure that we get the most learning value out of it, the way we facilitate is to have everyone feel at ease to be able to ask those questions as well. So if I
yeah,
did my job right, okay, at the
yeah,
end of the 2 days, everyone will have spoken at least a few times
yeah,
in class, right? But if you're talking about those top like really difficult questions coming in, really racing ahead to really think of how they're going to apply to their own work, there are quite a few people. There are a few
hmm,
people that comes to mind. Yeah. Why do you
yeah.
ask?
Well, I just want to learn more about the people you have touched, and yeah, So, tell me a bit more. So, tell me about. So, I know there's a 60-minute check-in, but do
Yeah.
you hear from them otherwise? Do they sometimes email you saying, "Oh, we did this"? Yeah, maybe share some of that stories. Maybe, yeah, I mean, tell us about some of the companies you work with. Yeah, tell me. I would love to learn, hear more about that.
Mm, mm. Yeah. So there are people who after the 60 minutes, right, and then they continue to left on their own. So that's where you hear back from people who finally figured out and they'll email you very excitedly about it. But a lot
Yeah.
of times, I don't know, maybe it's my part of the world. We are kind
Mm.
of quiet or modest about things. So I only find out how they are doing when they register for the next class.
Oh,
So
really?
couple of months later, it could be a year down the road. And like, how has life changed for you since you did that, Power Query class, or if you did that
Mhm.
DEX class, what has changed for you, right? So some people would sheepishly kind of own up, like, yeah, well, I didn't quite do much of that. And then usually that when that happens, it's probably because they are not like a very heavy user. Right. So whatever
Mm.
they do, they don't really need it so much. But for them, it's still an eye opener and it's something that primes them or prepares them for a next possible role as well, right?
Yeah.
But then there are others who then say, yeah, I built out this whole dashboard for my
Yeah.
group, and now I've already transferred to another team, but the old team is
Mhm.
still using it. So they'll tell you all of that. But usually it only happens after when I see them again, or like for some of my
Yeah.
clients, the bigger clients, when I've had to go down to their office, and then I run into people along the way, and I'm like, hey, how's that going? Or if I meet with some of their bosses, we catch up over coffee. And it's like, hey, how's it going? Has
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
changed for you guys? Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. So I will say that, folks, um, people do not seem to be shy about leaving 5-star reviews for Light.lab. So if you go to light.lab.com, there are tons and tons of reviews where they're saying really amazing things. So that's great that um, yeah. I mean, obviously, Grace, you're hearing it from them in some forums and some settings, but yeah, they're kind of doing it online too as well. Awesome. So let's switch gears a bit, and maybe we'll come back to some of this stuff. But tell me a bit about. So you were in a 9 to 5 role. You said you were a data analyst, and you're kind of trying to help that role now. Tell me, and I know this is like a big question, but tell me about your current life and what does it mean for you? What value does it bring for you to not be in a conventional 9 to 5? You show up at work Monday to Friday, that kind of role. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously you've been doing it for a few years, so it has to be have some relevance or value for you. What is that? Tell me about that.
So I think the biggest thing that I'm really thankful for every day right now, right, having made that transition, there's this Chinese word that comes to mind, right? And I'll translate it, right? So the Chinese word that comes to mind is 甘愿. 甘愿 is like, I don't know. I think you could use willing. I'm willing. I'm willing, right? And I say that because one of the things I've noticed about myself, all through, even in school and then into corporate life, is that I find myself frequently victimizing myself in that sense. Sort of like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I don't agree with that. Like, oh, this is a stupid policy thing. Like, why do we have to keep doing that? There are a lot of things that I don't get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to do it as part of my role, right?
Yeah.
And I have to show up because I have to go to office. I am expected to be there. I have to turn that deck
Yeah.
around because I need it on Monday. I'm burning my Saturday for it or something like that. I'm like doing my late nights, right? Um, I think there's a lot of, and I think with that builds a lot of resentment as well. And the resentment isn't quite directed at anyone per se, but at some point when I really investigated, it's directed back at myself. So I would say a lot more
Mm.
angsty previously, right? And for now, I feel like that isn't so much a big part anymore. Because now
Wow.
every day I wake up and whatever I do, no matter how I feel about it, I can still feel like, oh man, I don't really want to do this, but I chose this, right? Every
Yeah.
single day, every single hour, how I spend it, I chose it, and there's no one else I can point my finger at, right? So then I think that really kind of, how do I put that? It really takes off this huge burden that I didn't even know it's there. Um,
Mm.
and it makes me a lot. I think there's a lot more peace in that sense, right? Because I chose it. It's coherent. It's aligned. It's authentic with my choices, right? So, for example, now like I could, take like I don't know, like a month off, right? And I could spend 2 weeks with my family in Taiwan traveling, and then another 2 weeks on my own, and I could go for classes in terms of my
Mm.
personal development, or I could do a coaching class. I could fund it myself, because people might think that if you're doing an analyst role, why are you going for a coaching class? We're not going to sponsor you for a coaching class, right? But
Mhm.
for me, it's like, you know what, I see this as how do I create more value is when I'm able to blend two very different aspects, right? Very technical training, very technical kind of knowledge
Yeah.
realm, but with a more people soft part, right? How do I put that together, create something new? And this freedom, to
Yeah.
kind of learn or to experiment. I think all these things add to this whole thing of willingness, right? I'm willing.
Wow.
I want this, not because someone said I should or I have
Yeah.
to, right? So I think that is one of the biggest changes I felt. Right. So then I make my choices. As a business owner, I bear all the responsibility. If sales aren't coming in, that's on me. Right. If I'm having a customer issue, that's on me, right? If I have a great class, great for me. If I had
Yeah.
not so good a class, that's on me. But what happens is then like there's just that whole thing pinned on willing. I'm willing and I chose this. Yeah.
Man, that's beautiful. I'm gonna have to sleep on that a bit. Yeah, just this idea of be willing. But what you said was where you talked about blending two different things. You talked about kind of coaching and bringing that in. And is that, do you feel that is about being able to bring your whole self to work? I mean, I struggle with that with a bit where it was almost like this work persona, like this work hobby, and it had its boundaries, and I had to act a certain way and only do this and not do that and so forth. And then there was the personal one, which also had its set of rules, like, oh, I couldn't do this here. And now I feel like that's kind of blended and I can kind of bring my whole self. So do you feel it that way, or do you see it differently?
I never thought of it in that way. But as you described it, I think it's being authentic, right? So it's bring my authentic self. I don't think I had. Well, yeah, I would agree that being in a corporate setting back then, there are some kind of invisible boundaries that you kind of know and you want to like kind of preserve in that sense.
Mm.
Maybe out of proper decorum or however it is, right? But I think really then running my own business, then it's really showing up and bringing the whole of self, as you said, but being authentic, because then what I'm interested in and what I believe in that will help
Mm.
people learn, I can bring that, I can make that decision to put that in, right? And then I let the data speak for itself, right? I look at how the people respond in class, I see the feedback that they give at the end of the surveys or even the Google reviews, and then that would then be good enough to know should I do something or not. And that's different from having to clear many rounds of management or having to work with the different
Ah,
departments just to
yeah.
decide how we want to do something. So I think there's some merit or some benefit to just being a small outfit compared to being in a large organization, right? Because then when you're a large organization, there's a lot more things you have to be careful about. Not to say you should be flippant as a small team or a small
Hmm.
business, but I think the time to feedback, to try out the different things of what feels right for
Yeah.
me, in the best interest of the learning experience, we can like do that, right? So there's a
Wow.
lot less, I would say, restrictions
Hmm.
in then trying to be authentic or trying out things that I believe can work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's incredible. So I wanna pull on that thread. You mentioned coaching, and you have been coaching people, and so of course we are kind of in a similar role there. So we have our group coaching program. We call it Pro Plus, and where we essentially coach people to kind of just leave the bonds and chains of 9 to 5 behind, create a life of freedom. So has your coaching been focused on that? So I know you have gone through that transition yourself. You left your 9 to 5. You've gone through this journey of being a solopreneur. Uh, so has your coaching developed around that, or is it more general kind of career coaching? Tell me a bit about that.
Mm, mm. So right now, I've only started my coaching journey about 2 years back, and so I'm still trying to hone my niche in that sense. But the people that I
Mm,
would love to work with are people who are going through transitions. So of course, the people I'd love to work with were people like myself,
mm,
taking the path less traveled. It's very very daunting. It's really
mhm.
scary, and you'll be wondering. Have I made the right decision, and how do I even go? Where do I even go from here? There's a lot more wayfinding that needs to be done early in
Yeah.
the transition, right? So that would be the group that I would love to work with. Previously, when I was still part of the Pro Plus program with you as well, I played that role for some of our members as well. So I think the problem comes where we think that someone else would tell us what's the right way. But when we
Mm,
realize we're out there on our own as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we need to find the way that's right for us. So
yeah.
coaching conversations help each person to uncover what is right for them, and then they take that next step. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be the group I'd love to work with. I have some, but there's also another group. There's a much bigger group, right? Because then more people are in employment, and then I've
Mm,
been working with people in terms of career transitions as well. Somebody who has got retrenched, or somebody who's looking to make
yeah.
a different move altogether, or someone who's wondering like, oh, I've got operations background, I've got marketing, but they're so different. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
After coaching, 7 sessions later, she lands a job with a huge tech company that marries the two in a kind of startup thing over there, right? So
Yeah.
it's helping people to figure that out. That I've been working with as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I've
major,
heard
major
some.
transitions.
Sorry, say again.
Major transitions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've certainly heard some pretty cool success stories from you around coaching. Um, so, uh, and this is one-on-one coaching, right?
Yes, that's right.
And how long does it typically engage for? How does it typically work? Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so usually we would have this thing called a chemistry session. So a chemistry
Okay.
session is a complimentary session, and the whole point is for the coach and the client to kind of get a sense of each other. It's like chemistry, right? Do you have chemistry with that
Yeah.
person?
Is
Because
it
if you don't
fit?
have chemistry with that person for the next 6 sessions or seven, you're gonna
Yeah.
just suffer, right? You're just gonna
Yeah.
absolutely hate it, right? So you want to make sure you have that chemistry going. But in that session, it's also for us to kind of align both
Mm,
sides on what coaching is and what it isn't. Where a lot of
mm,
people in this part of the world still think that coaching is about telling them what to do because they've been seeing all those sports coaches telling them you should swing it that
mm.
way, you should do it that way, right? And that's a lot of misconception we've had to debunk in it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of expectation setting, but also a flavor of how coaching is like. So we have a conversation, we explore what the person's looking at, and part
Yeah.
of that gives them the experience and say, hey, is this something you find useful? Are we the right people
Yeah.
to work with? Yeah. So beyond that, and if they say yes, I would love to work with you, then
Yeah.
usually it's an engagement of like about 6 to 7 sessions over, about 6 to 7, probably every month or every 2 weeks, depending on the cadence.
Yeah.
And usually we work through a change that they need support and they want support in, especially something that is beyond their comfort zone. Yeah, so
Yeah.
then we work with them every week. It's a 45-minute to 60-minute conversation. Check-ins. Where are you? What have you learned? And then we work on a part that keeps them stuck. So you get the energy and you go out
Yeah.
there again and you create the breakthroughs you need. You come back in again, and then we do that and we keep that momentum and energy going.
So that's great. I want to hear more from you about what coaching means. You touched on that. So I know somebody can expect that. Oh, I mean, they're gonna give me a list of things and homework and check on me. Yeah, do this on LinkedIn and then do this and then do that and then you'll have a job. But it works differently than that. Is it very personalized? Is it very customized? Does it vary from customer to customer, or is there again a kind of a yeah, tell us a bit about how does it work if you're not telling them, oh, do this, do this, do this. uh,
Mm,
what is coaching then? How would a
yeah.
session typically look like, or how would things progress over those 6 or 7 sessions?
Mm. Right. So what happens? One belief that you will have as a coach, right, is that everyone is the best expert in their own lives. They will
Mm,
have the answers. All right. So for us, what we are in charge of is the process for them to uncover the answers that they need for themselves. Because I don't live your life. I don't know all the details. I don't have all the access to that information, right?
mhm,
And even if I had, it would take me too long to figure it out. So where I am is to facilitate a conversation for you to uncover what's important to you, why it works, why it doesn't work. So the conversation happens, and 90% of the time, of the air time, goes to the client. It goes to the coachee, right?
mm,
10% is then the coach's job to then hold that space, to provide the
yeah,
reflection, to provide the questions, the points of inquiry, what's going to make the most impact for this person, to watch what's actually, and to observe and to sit with that person, to hold that space for them, to really unravel. They have this whole knotted ball of yarn. And in that
yeah,
60 minutes, we're going to let them slowly, piece, take it out, oh, that piece. And then at some point, sometimes they find that just
yeah,
one thing, and they pull it all out. And it's
yeah.
like at that moment, you have that eureka moment.
Hallelujah. Yeah,
Yeah, and they're like,
yeah,
oh, and then like, oh, I now see it, right?
yeah.
Because
Oh,
then that's
that's
the
beautiful.
true power, because they came up with the solution themselves. They own it fully. And that's where you
Yeah,
get the full power and the energy to say, I'm convinced about that. I have the conviction and I want to take that forward on my own terms.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So let's bring it back to training. So
Yeah.
in some way, it just may seem like, oh, there's this coaching piece I do here on the side, and then there's the training, right? Separate worlds, but I doubt they are separate like that. Tell me how do you find yourself maybe consciously or subconsciously bringing in the elements of coaching to the training, which seems very different, right? I mean, kind of technical. You're teaching the Power BI, DAX, modeling, visualization, but do
Yeah.
you bring those elements to that? Do you see that?
Definitely, definitely. So previously, before I did the coaching program, I was doing it without knowing I was doing it. So it's kind of like I kind of know, but I don't really know. But once
Mm,
I did my coaching program as well as the certification, right, I'm now very clear on the mechanics of the way when we deliver the training, when we engage, how do we facilitate that? And if like, where do I want to land that person? How do I want them to come to their eureka moments? I'm more aware now, right, of then the tools or the languaging or the questions to actually use to facilitate that process. So pretty much in training right now, I'm very aware right now. I'm using a lot of coaching techniques then during the training
mm,
sessions itself, because the whole point, as I said, it's not about telling you where to click, but having you come to the answers yourself first, right? So then when that happens, you can see the class going like, oh, like now they've got it on their own, right? Like, so I
oh,
think it,
that's
it lands
beautiful.
a lot more powerfully with them, and the learning sit a lot deeper with them, right? So
Yeah.
you kind of want to build that confidence in class already, that they can come up with the concepts themselves, the solutions themselves. And then, as I always explain to them, the only difference is that I'm here, I'm your Google right now, I tell you what it is. But if you're able to
Hmm.
articulate it the way you did to
Yeah.
me, you do
Yeah.
that the same in Google, or you do that to your colleagues, and they are able to then get you the answers that you actually need. Yeah. So then we use coaching in that sense to, instead of instructing them what they need to know, we blend it. So that there is still going to be knowledge transfer. I still have to tell them like new concepts, or like what's a one to many relationship, how the filter concept, the filter context works.
Mm,
I have to do that. But
yeah.
once you do that, when you go back to those concepts, how do you trigger recall? How do you get people to talk it through themselves? Right. So that's when all the coaching like techniques come in to then build around what has already been shared with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful, and yeah, folks. So that's definitely kind of the idea with this class, that you walk away with kind of actionable skills, not this vague sense of, yeah, I learned something. I mean, I've heard that people going through classes, and like, yeah, I didn't, but not able to implement. That's wonderful. So great. So I love kind of asking this question in the end, which is, so you talked about you kind of were the data analyst and now you're helping them, but I want to talk about the different persona, which is somebody who's stuck in a 9 to 5 job, and as I was, and the challenge was that it didn't suck. Like, it wasn't the worst thing ever. It was actually pretty good, and in a way, I was very thankful for my job. Of course, I'd come a long way being an immigrant and so forth, right? But there was a sense of kind of dis-ease, right, that you described, where I said, yeah, just not that control. I mean, I don't have control of my morning, my day. And you were almost too afraid to dream anything bigger, or too afraid to ask for anything more. And in a way, maybe questioning that, do I even deserve that? And all these fears that were getting in the way. So what would you say to that person, given that you have kind of walked that journey and I'm sure walked through some of those fears?
Mm, mm, mm. Well, the quote that comes to mind was what my mentor and my ex boss said to me. Right. So in Chinese, there is like two ways of saying the word regret. Right. Um, one is 遗憾, the other one is 后悔. Okay, I have to explain the difference between the two, right? So the way he said it was this: um, you don't want to, you will have many regrets in life, but you don't want to regret the stuff that you didn't do. So there
Mm.
are two regrets in my sentence, right? But in Chinese, there are two different words altogether.
Oh,
So
that's
the way he said it,
beautiful.
yeah, the way he said it is like, don't, you will 后悔, you will regret the stuff, some of the stuff that you do. You betray, you will. You are human, right?
Mm.
Uh, but don't 遗憾, don't regret the stuff that you didn't do, which you
Yeah.
wanted to, or you wish to, or you hope for. So really, it's playing the longer game and asking yourself, right? Like, on my dying bed. I know it sounds really cliche. People talk about, think about
Mm.
yourself on your dying bed. Who do you want to see around there? What would you have wanted to experience in life? But I think it's really true, because at some point I was also very stuck. I was like, this is great. I'm doing pretty well in my corporate role. But I think the question was, do I want to see this for the rest of my life? How would I feel when I'm in my 50s or my 60s or my 70s, and never had stepped out to even do it? Right. So I think there is a very real sense of failure, guys. Entrepreneurship is not for the faint-hearted, faint-hearted. But there's this, then the rational side or the logical side. You still need to plan for it. If you have a house, you have a mortgage, you've got kids or whatever, plan it, right? What's the runway you have? What do you need? How much can you afford to fail? And
Mm.
just do it anyway, right? Because then even if you failed, that would have been a great story as well, a great life experience. Everything comes with a price, of course. Maybe if you fail and you go back to like a role, you will be at the same level, or you might have a pay cut or whatever. But I think in life, not everything is just about the dollar value.
Yeah.
What would it mean in terms of experience, as a life well lived? So I think I come from that angle, maybe a little bit idealistic, I don't know. But I think for me, no regrets at all for the path I've taken. I also know and I acknowledge I've been really lucky. I've got a lot of mentors. I've got we call it like people, or I don't know what's that word for that. People who help you along the way. I've had that. And I'm
Mm.
very, very lucky as well to actually make it. Yeah, it took quite a few years to know, like,
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
I making it? Am I not making it? Is this working? Am I doing it all
Yeah.
wrong? For like years, I'll be like, I should just go back to a corporate job, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is, so it's funny, right? I mean, I use the word solopreneur, and yes, sometimes I describe myself that way. But of course, the lesson I've learned is independent, but not alone. So yeah, I mean, definitely have those people around you who help you along the way. That's terrific. So Grace, you do it's this incredible online Power BI training, and you do kind of career coaching as well. What's the best place that people can get a hold of you to reach you?
Well, the best place would definitely be the website, light.lab.com. You can see the name spelled, I think, just out past my name. Or you can just check
Perfect.
out, you can also look for me, I guess, on LinkedIn. Look for light.lab, or you can look for Grace Teoh as well. I think it should come up for Power BI. Yeah.
All right, folks, make sure to do that. We'll see you in the next one. Take care and power on.